Hey everybody, I wanted to give a little precursor prior to the video because during the rewatch and edit of this video, I noticed that it might seem as if I'm tarring the entire online goth community with the same brush. And that's certainly not my intention, nor is it the point of this video. In fact, most of my interactions with the online goth community have been quite positive, and I'm definitely happy to say that much of the people that I've encountered I consider friends, and some even family. So the point of this video is to highlight the more damaging side, the darker side to the online communities. As with any of my serious videos, I like to highlight the darker, more divisive issues because it's important that we draw attention to them, recognize them, and just eradicate them entirely. So if you feel personally offended as a member of the online goth community and you're a well-meaning, good person, I really do apologize if you're offended because this video is not directed at you. But if you're one of the people who, say, use the online goth community as a way to pull rank and inflate your own ego and even use music as a weapon, and you are offended, good! Be forewarned, Bam Bam is napping and he never does it quietly, so if you hear him snoring, it's just who he is and we accept it. On the subject of sound, I wanted to address something that's really been bothering me, and the fact that sharing music to me has become an issue. It's definitely something that needs addressing because I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Coming up in the scene, music has sort of been a form of communication for us, and it's something that we were really excited to share. I remember in my circle of friends, when one of us would find a new song or a new band, we would immediately be on the phone with one another. Oh my God, you gotta hear this! And then put the phone up to the boombox and then play the song. And I actually remember, for some reason this one sticks out in my head, the first time I heard the song Incendiary Lover by Jeton Damone, it was on a compilation, and it was just the coolest song I'd ever heard, and I was like, my friends need to hear this, and I called them all. It was like 11 o'clock at night on a school night, and played it for them, and needless to say, the very next day, it was on a mixtape, and it was making the rounds. So that's really the way that we were with music, and it wasn't like we shared it in sort of a power sense, like a power trip, like, haha, I found this before you did. It was more along the lines of giving a gift. There are people who are really good gift givers or really good gift receivers. I am really freaking bad at receiving gifts. I am an awkward recipient of gifts. Like, if you were to pay me a compliment or give me a present, I get really awkward. I don't know how to accept, and it's the exact opposite when it comes to giving gifts. I'm much better at giving gifts, and it makes me happy. It brings me joy to give presents. So when it comes Christmas time, birthdays, I enjoy the whole process of doing that. And it's the same thing with music. It makes me happy. It brings me joy to share music with you. So when I found myself not wanting to do that, I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. And I know exactly what it is. I know why I'm doing it. And I don't know if it's a moral dilemma. I don't know if it's me just being my usual stubborn ass self, but it's an issue. And the issue is in regards to behaviors that I have not only seen, but experienced by way of the online gothic community. It's caused me to pull back and not only stop sharing music, but not want to participate as much. Just the whole concept of it pisses me off, the way people interact with one another and the way a lot of people view music and use it. And I'm going to get into that whole sort of idea that's resulted in my apprehension to the point where I hoard it now and I won't share it, and that's not good. When you stop sharing and you stop educating, that's when things begin to die. You want the tradition to continue on, and the fact that there's new music being released, that's amazing, and it's important that we share that, but it's also important that we share older stuff as well. And my era, it's definitely the 90s, and the 90s also includes a lot of 80s music for us as well, because it was always sort of part and parcel. The goth clubs are where we always congregated. So I know a lot of people said, oh, you know, that's all the goth scene is, it's goth clubs. Where else are we going to go to listen to the music and see each other simultaneously other than house parties? When you listen to the music, it just makes you want to dance, and it's kind of weird doing that in your mom's living room. So if you can go to a club and do that, why not do it? So like I said, until fairly recently, I've been pretty active on social media, but I've really dialed that back a lot. And It sucks. You know, I really like communicating with other goths online. I like the concept of sharing ideas and thoughts and just getting to know other people. And communicating online in that regard, you really get a good idea for personality types, names, faces. You really get to know each other. And for the most part, and this is completely online, for the most part, everybody's really cool. They're amenable, open-minded, receptive to ideas, and just enthusiastic about sharing music, sharing thoughts, and just communicating in general. But with this form of communication, you also have your percentage of jerks. Total freaking assholes. It's not even that big of a percentage. It just feels much bigger because they have this inherent need to be heard. And it's like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum. They cannot just enter into a discussion. They have to explode in there like the Kool-Aid guy, bursting through a brick wall, resulting in chaos and disarray. And what ends up happening is that their post or contribution either ends in complete and utter discord or abandonment because nobody wants to deal with it. And when the reasonable people disengage because they just don't want the back and forth of the dumb fuck ping pong match that's going on, the jerk misinterprets this whole situation as a win, and their ego gets inflated that much more. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. I keep saying jerk, but I really want to elaborate because it's a very specific kind of jerk, and it's nothing new. And it's not something exclusively online. And it's the kind of person that I've encountered since the very first time I started congregating in the goth scene. And they've probably been there from the very beginning. Call them what you will, but they are false gatekeepers, wannabes, tryhards, posers. That's basically the kind of jerk that I'm referring to. So back in the day, we had these people that would just pop up, like seemingly out of nowhere, and start going to goth events. When it came to things like information, you were really hard-pressed to find anything online. Anything regarding the goth scene was quite scarce online. So any information that you would find would be in publications, experience, word of mouth, that kind of thing. And these were the false gatekeepers. They would use music kind of like a weapon, for lack of a better way to put it, and they would use it to rise up in the ranks and win the game of popularity and really use it as a way to intimidate you. They weren't really very pleasant people to be around because they were either just constantly talking about music but in a derogatory way, if you can imagine that, or themselves. You tried to be cordial in the clubs. That's really how we were. When we were out, we really tried to be cordial to one another, and even if it was somebody that you didn't like, you still tried to keep the pleasantries and keep them at arm's length. A little, subtle nod, a little hello, like, as you're walking by, just to let them know that, we're not on bad terms, no bad blood or anything like that, but don't fucking talk to me. They would only really pull this stuff on the very obvious newcomers or maybe even people in their age range. Just people that they knew that they could pull one over on, and they would never, never dare try it on a seasoned veteran because these are the very people that they were trying to masquerade as, the elders, so to speak, and they wouldn't last 0.5 seconds before the jig would be up. Looking back, I can remember these encounters that I've had. I can remember their faces, but I can't remember the names of them for the life of me, mainly because I didn't really care. Just gave them names like Velvet Cape Dumbfuck or something, but it's like these people, they materialize out of nowhere, and then suddenly they're everywhere. And they are name-dropping bands and music facts like it's their job. They were like one of those persistent pop-up ads in human form, and you're just like, oh my god, Velvet Cape Dumbfuck, just go outside and play with yourself or something. On top of their massive superiority complexes and egos, they had a penchant for belittling, discrediting, and attacking key players, really prominent figures in the scene. Rarely would it be individuals that were close enough to be able to catch wind of their shit-talking and then confront them, but it would be more along the lines of them citing a band's lack of authenticity or publication. Now and again, they would get drunk and say insult the DJ's musical choices, but it was more along the lines of bigger, key, prominent members because by pushing such a big feature down, it makes them seem bigger. Socially, when I was younger, we talked about music a ton, but it wasn't all we talked about. Granted, it was a big part of our identities, but we had many different layers and other things that we discussed. We certainly didn't shove goth history or goth facts down each other's throats at every given opportunity. Getting attacked with goth facts like that, it's like, who are they really doing that for? Because doing it is presuming that you know nothing. And who is it really at the benefit of? Is it for you? Or is it for them? When they appear out of nowhere and they come in hot like that, you kind of have to wonder why. You've come as far as to have found your way here, you're supporting the scene, put down the Gothopedia, and for the love of God, stop beating that kid in the face with it. That in itself, it was a dead giveaway, but we found a way that we could smoke them out pretty quickly, because back then, it was much harder to keep up that kind of charade. There was no Wikipedia, there was no vast resource of information that they could draw from, there was no computer to hide behind to maintain this facade. So what would we do? We would fabricate a band right out of thin air, give them a few hit tracks, country of origin, and then we were away. My personal favorite was the sadly short-lived 80s death rock band from LA, Grandma's Knitted Panties. Lo and behold, you'd mention the band to the false gatekeeper, and they're completely familiar with their work. Right. They didn't care about the scene. They didn't connect to the music on a visceral level in that way you can lose yourself in a song. They wanted popularity in an underground scene, and they wanted to be worshipped by those in it. Their time in the scene was usually pretty short-lived because they'd either lose interest or just piss one too many people off to the point where they just couldn't even go out anymore. So the thing about the modernized version of these people is that things are a lot easier to fake these days because of the access to information that we have. So the ability to weaponize the music is even that much easier. So the way it works is somewhat parasitic. They suck whatever information they can off of the internet and then put themselves in a position of power, at least in the eyes of the onlooker. We are talking eldritch level arrogance, and they splay their feathers, aka name drop like a mofo, and deliver a rant with enough aggression behind it to seem confident in a badass sort of way to award them Dictator of the Year t-shirt. A t-shirt to which they will DIY in a style adopted by some ridiculously obscure 80s post-punk band that no one has ever heard of because they only released one single on cassette, to which 4 copies were only ever made. They had one performance, which was a backyard barbecue in like Oxnard, California somewhere, but they will still shame you for not knowing who that band is. Meanwhile, they found out about them last Tuesday. It's not about passion or identity. It's not about waiting all week or all month to dance to your favorite song or see your favorite band and support the scene. It's about status and hierarchy, and instead of actually making a contribution, their asses are just the loudest and most obnoxious tryhards on a series of message boards, trying desperately just to be top brass and build an echo chamber. Dream big. I don't want you to see this behavior and think that the topic of music is something to be feared or a bullying tactic. To those of us who really do give a shit, and believe me, we do outnumber the douches, we love talking about music, and we love sharing music with you. And that's not because it gives us an advantage over you. It's a win if we've helped you find a band that kicks your ass, but we also want the goth scene to continue. We want it to endure. So educating you is also something that's really integral. Showing you the cool shit and helping you carve that path makes it possible. With the wannabe gatekeepers, they sort of build this codependent relationship to where they bog you down with all of this information that they've just copied and pasted from Wikipedia, that you're just dizzy with it and are convinced that you know nothing and need them, so you blindly follow with no semblance of individuality. I mean, at least that's the idea. But it doesn't have to be that way, because this information is out there for anybody. That is really where I was at, because some of the bands that I listen to, you can't really find on Wikipedia or elsewhere. You really do have to dig to find, and these are bands that are really near and dear to me. They're bands that hold a lot of sentimental value. And when you've used music for so much positivity, to see somebody use it as ammo and use to shame somebody, it's enough to make you want to hold it back. And that's where my apprehension came from. I did not want to see my music be used as ammo. This song that has such a sentimental meaning to me because I ascribe it to this one event in my life, and then I share it and see this very same person use it to shame you and make you feel bad about yourself. Fuck that. I'm holding it in. I'm keeping it to myself. But that's really where the dilemma comes in. And this is it. This is where I'm torn, because I don't want to contribute to the ego enema that these bitches are using the music for, and I certainly don't want you to be there to get blasted with it when they fire it back out again. From my perspective, it's an annoyance, but coming from somebody who's new to the scene or somebody who may not be new, but has yet to venture out yet, but would like to. I can see how something like this would be very off-putting or even cause you to question yourself. If you happen to fall into that category, take it from me, I have personally witnessed the progression of these sebaceous cysts on the ass of the subculture personally. As much as I'd like you to believe otherwise, older does not mean elder when they've been in the scene 5 fucking minutes. Half a semester in a foreign language course does not make you fluent. There is no hierarchy, so do not let anybody ever try and pull rank on you. They can spout out all the seemingly endless knowledge with regards to the scene online because Google supersedes their cognitive thought process. They can get name, dates, dominant poop color, but I promise you, the real fun begins when you get them in person. Real life situations do not come equipped with Wiki. Even if you do manage to get them off of the computer and in real life, try to engage them in a continuation of a conversation that they themselves started, and you will get an Oscar-winning performance about how they're too drunk or they just don't want to talk about it. But then again, that's all hypothetical because it's highly unlikely that you will find these types of people out now. Because again, it's incredibly difficult to keep up that kind of charade in person. I suppose the moral of the story here is to really know the difference between a goth that genuinely wants to help you and a false gatekeeper. Just because somebody is an elder in the scene and they've been around longer, it doesn't mean that we command a certain amount of respect or want to be treated any differently. It's like you learned in kindergarten, you treat others the way that you yourself want to be treated. Now these other people, they're so easy to spot because they lose their shit completely should you dare disagree with them. If you're bored, I highly recommend trying it. It's hilarious. If there was a way that I could share my music just with you and keep it out of the hands of them, it would make life so much easier, but I know that that's not possible. And eventually I know this is something that I will get over because I have to just accept that these people exist. It's just the idea that somebody can take something so positive and something that I want to share with you, something so close to my heart, and then in turn use that negatively. And it makes me just want to slap them upside the head and say, stop being stupid. But you can't do that. So eventually, like I said, I will just get over it and move on. But as for you, I hope that you kind of take away the same thing, that these people exist, but they only exist here. Putting yourself in a real life situation, going out to a club or a show or something like that, I think that you would be pleasantly surprised because the way that people conduct themselves online versus reality are two entirely different things. They're two entirely different goth scenes. They're different worlds. Because online you have a lot of rules, you have subgenres, you have a strict code of conduct that you need to follow because you have so many different personality types that you need to sort of satiate. And that's not the case in reality, especially with how cruel people can be, particularly with regards to what we're talking about now with the music. There are a few reasons why you're not going to encounter the same type of person in real life than you would online. It takes money and effort to go out and do things, and when people are putting in that effort and spending their own money, they want to have a good time. Another reason is there's a certain amount of comfort, safety, and anonymity that comes along with being behind a computer screen, and people feel pretty emboldened to say a lot of things they wouldn't do in real life, mainly because they don't have to answer for it. So rest assured, you will be safe going out and having a good time, and I don't want that to put you off. So just know that reality versus online are two entirely different worlds. So go out, have fun, and should you, on the rare occasion, encounter such a person, send them my way. I'll deal with them.